She won $877 million and lost $83 million of it to the one man she trusted to protect it. Her own lawyer. Not a stranger. Not a stranger in a dark alley. The man with the framed law degree on his wall who called himself the lottery lawyer and told her in her most vulnerable moment, "Call me first, before you even call the lottery office." That is how these stories start. Not with a con man breaking in through a window. With a handshake, a business card, and a signature on the dotted line. If you won a life-changing jackpot tomorrow, who is the very first person you would call? Would it be a lawyer? A family member? Nobody at all? Drop your answer in the comments. I read every single one of them. And here's the second thing I want from you before we go any further. As I walk you through these 5 cases, try to guess before I tell you exactly how each lawyer got away with it for as long as they did. Some of these tricks are so simple, it's almost embarrassing. And I think you're going to be shocked at how obvious the warning signs were in hindsight. And last thing, if you know someone who just came into money, an inheritance, a settlement, a big win, anything, send them this video before they hire the wrong person to help them keep it. This is the video that could save someone you love a fortune. Before we get into it, if stories like this get your blood boiling the way they get mine boiling, do me a favor and hit like on this video and subscribe while you're at it. I put these deep dives together every single week. Real cases, real names, real numbers, and I would love to have you back for the next one. Let's start at the top, with the biggest number on this list and the man behind almost half of it. October 23, 2018. A woman in Simpsonville, South Carolina, wakes up and checks a ticket she almost forgot she bought. She has just won the Mega Millions jackpot, $1.537 billion. At the time, it is the second largest lottery jackpot in American history, and the largest prize ever paid out to a single winning ticket. She does not come forward right away. She sits on that ticket for months, terrified of what her life is about to become. When she finally does step forward in March of 2019, South Carolina law lets her stay anonymous. She takes the lump sum, $877,784,124 after the mandatory cut. The largest single lump sum payout in the history of American lottery. Now imagine that morning. You are suddenly one of the wealthiest private individuals in the country, and you have no idea what to do next. So you do exactly what every financial guide tells you to do. You look for professional help. And there is a man in New York who has built an entire brand around being exactly that kind of help. His name is Jason Kurland, and for almost a decade, he marketed himself, quite literally, as the lottery lawyer. He went on television. He gave interviews to major outlets. He tweeted at lottery winners the moment a jackpot was announced, with the hashtag #CallMe. He told reporters that lottery winners were, in his words, not sophisticated enough to protect themselves and that they needed professionals like him. The South Carolina winner hired him. She paid him and his law firm hundreds of thousands of dollars in fees just to get his advice. At first, everything looked legitimate. Traditional investments, respected institutions, the kind of advice you would expect from Wall Street. That is the part that should scare you the most. He built real trust first. He did not sprint for the money on day one. He played the long game. Then slowly, he started steering her money into businesses that he secretly owned a piece of. Merchant cash advance companies, ventures run by his associates. And he was collecting kickbacks on every dollar of hers that went into them, kickbacks he never told her about. According to prosecutors, he eventually got direct access to her bank account and pulled money out of it himself. By the time investigators finished counting, this one woman had lost $83 million. And here is where the story stops sounding like a white-collar crime documentary and starts sounding like an organized crime film, because Kurland was not working alone. One of his closest partners in this scheme was a man named Christopher Ciarcio, described in federal court documents as a soldier in the Genovese crime family. Another associate, Francesco Russo, was the son of a Colombo crime family capo. These are not exaggerations from a tabloid. This is language straight out of federal indictments. The money that was supposed to be safely invested for lottery winners was instead funding private jets, luxury vacations, and not one, but 2 yachts. When one of the scheme's investment partners, a jeweler who had taken a $250,000 loan from lottery winner money, could not pay it back fast enough, 2 of Kurland's associates allegedly threatened to torture him and kill his wife and children. This is the world that this soft-spoken, television-friendly, self-proclaimed lottery lawyer had quietly built his practice inside of. If this first case alone has your jaw on the floor, wait, because it gets worse. And it involves 2 more people who trusted this exact same man. While he was working the South Carolina winner, Kurland had 2 other jackpot clients on his roster at the very same time. One of them was a man named Nandlal Mangal, who had won $245.6 million in a Powerball drawing back in 2018. The third victim won a $150 million jackpot and to this day has chosen to remain unnamed in court filings, identified only as the third lottery victim. Together, prosecutors say these 3 people paid Kurland's firm upfront fees ranging from $75,000 to $200,000 just for the privilege of being told their money was in good hands. It was not. Kurland steered all 3 of them into the same web of businesses controlled by his criminally connected associates. When the investments started collapsing under the weight of a Ponzi-style structure, instead of coming clean, Kurland doubled down. In the spring of 2020, with the FBI already circling and his own clients starting to ask hard questions, he pushed the $150 million jackpot winner into so-called personal protective equipment deals, right as the pandemic was creating a desperate global market for masks and gloves. Kurland allegedly took $19.5 million directly out of that winner's account for these deals. Most of it was skimmed off the top by his co-conspirators before it ever reached a single mask. Quick pause here, because I want to know something. Out of the 3 Kurland cases so far, the South Carolina billion-dollar winner, Nandlal Mangal, and the anonymous $150 million winner, which one shocked you the most? Type it in the comments. I am genuinely curious which of these hits people the hardest, because when I read through the trial transcripts, it was the direct account withdrawal that got me. That is not clever investment fraud anymore. That is just theft, dressed up in a suit. Here is my honest take on why this whole thing worked for as long as it did. If you ask me, the real weapon Kurland used was not his law degree. It was his image. He spent years building a reputation as the guy who protects lottery winners from scam artists. He wrote articles warning people about exactly the kind of fraud he was quietly committing. That is not an accident. That is strategy. When you position yourself as the safe harbor, as the person warning everyone else about the sharks, nobody thinks to check whether you are the shark. In August of 2020, federal prosecutors finally unsealed the indictment. Kurland went to trial in the summer of 2022 and was convicted on every single count: wire fraud, honest services fraud, money laundering, conspiracy. In June of 2023, he was sentenced to 13 years in federal prison and ordered to forfeit $64.6 million. His partner, Christopher Chiurchio, the alleged Genovese soldier, personally pocketed more than $25 million of these winners' money before he was sentenced to 5 years himself. Combined, the losses from Kurland's scheme crossed $100 million, stolen from people who did nothing wrong except trust the wrong lawyer. That is 4 names so far tied to a single law office on Long Island. But lawyers preying on lottery winners is not one man's story. It happens in small towns too, with far less glamour and far less press coverage. And honestly, those stories worry me just as much, because the winners in these next cases never had a chance to become famous or protected by public scrutiny. Let's go to Huntington, New York, a much smaller and quieter case, but no less painful for the person living through it. A woman named Daphne Zakaria was a partner at a small law firm there. In December of 2021, a New York State lottery winner walked through her door and hired her. He asked her to do something very simple: hold a portion of his winnings safely in the firm's escrow account and invest another portion on his behalf. That is it. That was the entire job. Instead, according to prosecutors, Zakaria did neither. She never invested the money. She never safely held it either. Over 3 separate transactions, she collected $230,000 from this winner, and instead of protecting it, she used it to make large transfers to other individuals entirely. Transfers that would not have even been possible if his winnings had not been sitting in her account in the first place. This was not the only client she was doing this to, either. Around the same time, she was also draining $150,000 that was supposed to sit in escrow for a different client's divorce settlement, and taking an additional $17,500 from an elderly Manhattan woman for legal work she never actually performed. In total, prosecutors say she stole nearly $400,000 across multiple victims using client trust accounts like a personal piggy bank. She was finally caught, pleaded guilty in May of 2025 to grand larceny and related charges, and was ultimately sentenced to jail time and 5 years of probation, ordered to pay back over $373,000 in restitution. Her law license was suspended while disbarment proceedings moved forward. Here is what strikes me about this case compared to the Kurland saga. Kurland's story is dramatic. Mob connections, yachts, threats of violence, $100 million gone. This one is quieter, almost mundane by comparison. And that is exactly why I think it matters just as much, maybe even more, for the average person watching this. Most lottery winners are not winning $1 billion. Most are winning a few $100,000 or a few million, and they are hiring a local attorney they found through a quick search or a referral. Someone with no track record of high-profile fraud, someone who looks completely ordinary. If you ask me, that ordinariness is the actual danger. Nobody warns you to research the small-town lawyer holding your escrow account the same way people now know to research a self-titled lottery lawyer with a television presence. The bigger, flashier con gets the headlines. The quiet, local one is just as devastating to the person living through it, and it happens far more often than most people realize. So here is the pattern across every single one of these stories, and I want you to really sit with this for a second. In every case, the winner did the responsible thing. They did not gamble the money away on their own. They did not trust a stranger on the internet. They hired a licensed professional, someone who had passed the bar, someone bound by an oath of trust and loyalty to their clients. And in every case, that license and that oath became the exact tool used against them. The system that is supposed to protect vulnerable people from bad actors was the very mechanism the bad actors hid inside of. If there is one lesson buried inside all 5 of these stories, it is this: sudden money does not just attract strangers hoping to con you on the street. It attracts people who spend years building credibility, specifically so that when the moment comes, you hand them the keys yourself. No lock-picking required. The most dangerous person after a jackpot is not the man asking for money outside the lottery office. It is the one already sitting behind a desk with a law degree on the wall, telling you that you can trust him more than you can trust yourself. So, here is my question for you before you go. If you came into a life-changing amount of money tomorrow, how would you actually verify that the person managing it was trustworthy, beyond just their title or their office? Would you check disciplinary records? Would you insist on a second set of eyes? Would you split the responsibility across multiple people so no one person ever had that much unchecked control? Tell me in the comments. I want to see how people would actually protect themselves, because I think that conversation might genuinely help someone watching this. And if this video opened your eyes even a little bit, hit like, share it with someone who needs to hear it before their own lucky day arrives, and subscribe for the next case, because there are, unfortunately, a lot more of these stories still to tell.